everybody. And let me just tell you what we're doing today. We have another feed line that the little sleeve has worn through, and feed is actually coming out the top of the feeder, resting on top of the control pan, or the control pan motor. But so right now Tyler's just letting the feed line halfway down. We have a tripod now, so we're pretty excited about that. We're going to try to get that started and set up to where we can kind of film the whole process instead of just one person filming and then stopping and then starting again. So Tyler's letting the feed line down about halfway now. We don't want it touching the ground. Sorry, I was just making sure he wasn't letting it all the way down. Sometimes he gets a little carried away. But so that's what we're doing. Tyler's getting in the truck right now. And we're headed in the little truck down to the end of the chicken house, because that's just too much walking.
If anybody from Canada sees this, we would appreciate it if you would shut the door. It's
yeah, it's cold in Georgia.
About 20, 25 degrees today, I think. So
I know that's not cold to some of y'all probably, but it's
it
cold
is
to Georgians. So
all right, first thing we have to do is we have to take the shocker wire loose. I think we've talked about the shocker wire before, but we'll go over that again in just a minute.
Yep.
We have to take the shocker wire loose first thing. This thing, they call it a shocker wire. It does not have any power on it. What this was used for years ago, it did have low voltage power on it, and when the chickens would jump up on the feed line to roost, this had a little power on it. They'd get a little shock on the feet and they'd jump off. We don't do that anymore, but we still have it, because if you look at this feed pan, the shocker wire is designed to keep the feed pan from turning all the way upside down and spilling feed. So we still have to have the shocker wire just for that purpose. We also have the turbo feeders in the brood area. When we turn them up out of the way, they lock onto this shocker wire to hold them up out of the way. So we don't use it for its original intended purpose, but there have been enough engineering marvels, I guess you'd call it, that we still need it. So,
and they're there just because, I mean, they were there originally to keep the chickens off of the feed lines from tearing up the equipment.
Originally, and they still will roost on top of this wire. It's actually pretty funny to watch them. They'll hop up on there, kind of get one of these numbers, but they can balance on the wire. It's kind of funny watching. But we have to take the shocker wire loose on the spring, and that also helps to hold the whole feed line together. It's anchored up there where we have to take the anchor bearing where the hopper goes on. This wire is also anchored in there, so we have to take it loose here to be able to take the feed line apart. The only way I've kind of do it, take a pair of pliers, take the spring loose, just like that. And this will be the last step when we come back to put everything together.
Yep.
We'll grab the pair of pliers, grab the spring, and hook it back on the anchor. What we're also going to do is we'll kind of lay this thing off to the side, about that far. And you see how much wire we have here. This is how much room we'll have down there to pull the feed pipes apart. So let's go do action. Here's our slack in the shocker wire. We've got about that much, and that's more than plenty. Now we have to take this clamp loose. If you look here, you have a coupling on the end of this feed pipe. You see where it kind of bails out, and that's so the end of this piece can slide up in there, and you put the clamp on to hold them together. This has a slot cut in it here and a slot cut in it here so that it can close and open. It can expand and contract with the clamp or without it. So we're going to take the clamp off. We're going to turn the wrench the right way, and then we have another clamp up there on the end. All right, a little more. Okay, that clamp's loose enough. Shocker wire's in the way. If you come up here, you'll see we have a clamp here that we're going to have to take loose. This is what's actually holding the bearing in of the anchor bearing. Actually, it's not holding the bearing, it's holding the cap over the bearing. And we will have to take that out. We'll show you that here in just a minute too. And there's the cap off. Right here is what's known as the anchor bearing. It's a bearing, it has a shaft going through it. We'll get into that in just a minute because it does have to come off. We should be ready to separate the feed line. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece of pipe with the auger. The auger is attached here. We're going to pull this piece of pipe this direction. Where we took the clamp off, the pipes will come apart and we'll have a section of auger there that we can see. When we pull tension on the auger, we'll stretch it out here. We'll put a pair of vice grips on the auger itself to hold it where it's at. Then we can take this section of pipe and push it forward, and we'll probably have about that much of the auger sticking out of the back of this pipe. We can take the anchor bearing out, and then we can let the tension off the auger and then go to the other end. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to have Danielle grab the pipe and pull it, and it will separate right here where we took the clamp loose. And once it separates, we can put our vice grips on the auger, and that'll hold it stretched out like that so that we can get the anchor bearing out, and then we'll show you how we let the tension off the auger. Pull, mama. Give it a good jerk. Keep pulling. There you go. Keep going. Go.
My feet are digging up in the litter.
That's not tight enough. Still not tight enough. Not quite tight enough.
Let it go.
Okay, we got it. Now we got it.
Oh, that's weird looking.
There we go. Alrighty, we are here.
Okay.
So here's our anchor bearing. You have to be very careful when you're messing with these feed lines. The reason why is this auger stretches. It has to be stretched, has to have tension so that it will pull feed to the end. So when they put the feed line together, this auger is just like a loaded spring. It's a stretched spring. And when you hold on to them, you see I'm holding the bearing. I'm not holding up here. I'm holding back here behind the auger. The reason why is if that vice grip was to turn loose and fall off, this is going back in that feed line. There's nothing I can do to stop it. And it's probably going to happen so fast that if I have my hand up here, it's going to get ugly. This is very sharp sheet metal. There's a guy that I met a few years ago, works for one of the equipment companies that we buy stuff from. And when I met him, he had been messing with a feed auger just like this, doing the same thing we're doing now. And his pliers came loose and his hand was wrapped up because he had about 40 stitches right here in the palm of his hand trying to put it back together basically. So this is something you really have to watch out for. You have to really be careful of a stretched auger. Now what we're going to do, you have a set screw right here. We have to take this set screw out. It's just an Allen wrench, loosen the set screw. What the set screw does is it spreads this shaft apart in the middle, and the shaft will put enough tension on the auger that when it comes on down there, it keeps enough tension on the auger that it turns the bearing and keeps everything aligned, keeps some tension on the shaft, keeps some tension on the auger so that it will move feed. And the way it's made is it's actually two pieces. It's welded together here and it's welded together here. And when you tighten this set screw, it pushes the shaft apart like that. That's exaggerated, but it's like that. So what's actually gripping the shaft on this anchor bearing, or what's actually gripping the auger, is the shaft, the middle of the shaft and the anchor bearing right here where this set screw is. Problem with that is this thing runs under feed all the time. So you get feed packed in this slot here in the bottom of the shaft, and you have to get the majority of it out before the shaft will collapse enough that you can actually take it loose. So let me get that picked out and we'll be right back with you. If you look here, right in this shaft, you can see the gap that I was talking about. So that's where the set screw spreads the shaft apart so that it can grip the inside of inside of the auger. Now we need to find the right Allen wrench. I'm sure there are people that saying it's a 3/16, it's a 5/32. The problem with it is the Allen wrench of the set screw has feed packed in it, and it's a little rusty, so
Makes it smaller.
makes it a little smaller. Doesn't exactly fit like it's supposed to anymore. I believe it's that one right there. I believe I need to get down in there a little better. Let me get a... You got that wrench in your pocket?
Yeah. I'm reaching in the wrong
one
pocket.
of your pockets. For anybody that doesn't know, this makes an excellent handle on the short end of an Allen wrench.
It's a lever.
It is a lever.
Let's go back to physical science.
Take you back to high school. There we go. So here's the problem we're running into. Right there, that is our set screw, and it has feed packed around it, and it's a little rusted. And this little this slot here in this shaft, it runs in the bottom of this hopper base. So the shaft comes all the way up into here, right in this area. So there's feed on top of this shaft all the time. So you get feed packed into the slot in this shaft all the time. And when this thing is put together, there's somewhere around 120, 140, maybe 150 pounds of feed sitting on top of this shaft at all times. So it gets packed in there pretty tight, kind of hard to get out. The set screws, like I say, it's covered in feed, got a little rust in there with it. So Danielle's going to get some penetrating oil. We use whatever's on sale. To the makers of PB Blaster, Danielle says this stuff stinks. She'd much rather smell WD-40. Now, if we were to get a few cans and, you know, little of this, little of that for free, that makes things smell a lot better. Just saying. I'm just throwing it out there.
Free smells good.
Free smells wonderful. You gotta have fun. If you don't have fun, what's life worth if you don't have fun? All right, I'm gonna spray that set screw a little. Grab my Allen wrench. Let's see what happens. Hex wrench, I guess, is what I should be calling it. It's not actually called an Allen wrench. It's kind of like a bush hog. Bush hog is actually just a rotary mower, but because bush hog was such a popular brand, it became synonymous with the rotary mower, similar to a Bobcat and skid steer. Bobcat is a brand. Bobcat is not what it actually is. The machine is a skid steer. Look at that. Look at that.
Yay.
Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. How about them apples? There we go. Okay. Our set screw is loose. Now, pair of pliers on the end of the shaft and
twist.
And twist and turn and twist and turn. I like it. Was it Barbara Streisand the workout videos?
No, Barbara Streisand's a singer.
Well, who was the one that did the workout videos? Yeah.
Not Suzanne.
Jane Fonda.
Jane Fonda. I was gonna say Suzanne Summers, but
Well, this is what we call the anchor bearing. This is the shaft. This is the actual bearing, and we're going to go ahead and replace this one. It's got a little bit of lost motion there, and I'm sure you can hear. So it's not broke down yet, but we do have new bearings, and we've come this far. This is what you have to do to replace the anchor bearing, so we're going to go ahead and replace it. Okay, give us just a minute and we will let the tension off of the auger, and then we'll go to the other end. We're ready to take the tension off of the auger, and the way we do that is we use a piece of auger. This is called a flex auger, and this is why it's called a flex auger. This is actually what is in the feed pipe. This is what pulls feed from the hopper, which this is where the hopper sits. This is the hopper base. This flex auger is what turns by the electric motor on the end. It pulls feed out of the hopper, down the feed line, and there's a hole at every pan and at every turbo grow. There's a hole in this pipe. Then the feed spills out of that hole until the pan gets full, and then it moves on to the next one, moves on to the next one, moves on to the next one. That's the way the feed line works. What we're going to do is we're going to thread this auger into the one that's inside of the line. This auger still has a lot of tension on it. So we thread this in there and pull it back where Danielle can take the pliers off down there, and then we'll let the tension off. And you see how long this piece of auger is. It's about 4 feet, and we'll probably have about 2 feet of it go back up into the pipe. That's about how much tension comes off of these augers when we do this. So let me thread it in, and then I'll pull, like I said, I'll pull a little bit more, and Danielle can take the pliers off.
Yep. This is
we'll ease it back in.
much easier to do when we don't have chickens, because if you have to replace one of these when you have chickens, it's hot, you're down in the floor.
Yeah, you're sitting on your butt trying to do this, and it's at the very least probably 80 to 85 degrees in here, and it's not that fun.
No.
But okay, I'm gonna pull it, and Danielle's gonna take the pliers off, and then we'll let the tension off.
Tell me when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay.
All right, here we go, let the tension off. And there the tension's off, and you can see we've got about 2 feet of this 4 foot piece of auger. So that's how much tension is on these feed lines. So if you're working on a feed line, be careful. They will hurt you if you're not really careful. We'll go to the other end, and that's where the piece we have to replace is. So we'll have to take the motor loose and slide the whole motor, transmission, and motor housing back. The piece that we need to replace is on the end of that. So we'll show you that too. Here's the piece we have to replace. This is the new one. It goes right here on the end of this motor housing. You can look right down through here. Look right down. Let me take the lid off so you can see a little better. You can look right here. You can see my finger pointing at the gap in the pipe. That is not supposed to be there. The same gap is on the bottom, and we have feed spilling out. It's mostly spilling out into the pan, but there is some that makes it to the floor, and this is not going to fix itself. It's not going to get better by itself.
It's just going to get worse, and then the more feed that spills on the floor, the worse your feed conversion is, and it'll just keep running and running.
Yep, and it's going to cost you money. All right, we're fixing to take this apart. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to unplug it. Now, I know for a fact, because I'm the one that turned it off, I know it's turned off in the control room, but I'm no different than anybody else. I make mistakes. I forget things. Danielle will tell you I forget things a lot. So, first thing we have to do here is we will need to take off this clamp, which is a 1/2 inch wrench, I believe it is.
That's in the toolbox.
That's in the toolbox that you guys are sitting on. So, wait just a minute. Okay, this clamp is the one that anchors the shocker wire with this spring. You got 2 studs on each side. It's actually a U-bolt is what it is. It's not 2 studs. It's a U-bolt, so we have 2 nuts we have to take loose. And as soon as we take these loose, we should be able to slide this whole motor section back. Actually, we can't, because we have to take the auger loose in here first. Getting ahead of myself. I've been guilty of that before. Okay, what we've got here is another set screw.
Professionals.
The way this auger is attached, you have the motor here. Here's the motor. Here's the transmission. Shaft comes out of the transmission, and here's where the auger clamps on. You have an aluminum block with a slot cut in it. You have an aluminum block with a slot cut in it right here.
It's rotating on its own, I think.
Right here. And when you turn the shaft around, there's a bolt that goes through the block. It's a threaded hole in the block. As you tighten the bolt, it squeezes tighter on the auger, holds it in place. So we have to get that loose. More than likely, it's going to have to be the wrench on the short side of an Allen wrench again, because I doubt very seriously I have enough hand strength to turn that. So I'm just going to do it anyway. Thank you, Bob Dye.
Cherokee High School.
Cherokee High School. We actually lost Mr. Dye not too long ago, and that's a big loss. He was absolutely my favorite. He was the best teacher I ever had, bar none. Ow, woo! Yo!
You want some gloves?
Yow! I broke my Allen wrench.
Broke it.
Broke the ball off the Allen wrench. Golly, that stung. It's bruised. Y'all almost got to hear me say some dirty words. Let's turn that off for a minute, as a matter of fact. I may go say something. Let's try this again. See if I can bruise another finger. I thought it came loose. I don't think it did.
Yeah, turn it.
All right, what we did, we couldn't get the bolt out. You can't get anything in there really to get any pliers or anything like that on it. So what I did was I took a 4-inch grinder with a cutoff wheel, the thin, I think it's a 83 or 90,000th thick cutoff wheel. And I've cut slots in the head of the bolt. And what I'm going to do now, you can see the slots here. What I'm going to do now is either take a chisel or a punch and a hammer and just break the head off. And then it should push on through the hole. Might have to do a little more grinding. We'll have to see, but we'll be real close with what we got right there, I think. Okay, I decided to just go ahead and grind off the head of the bolt, the whole head of the bolt. And we may wind up having to get another shaft to go on this motor, which is fine. At this point, we just need it fixed. We're not so much worried about saving pieces and parts. There's the bolt.
There it went.
Oh, I see. The whole thing turned. There's our clamp and what's left of our bolt.
The culprit.
The culprit. So that's a good place for it.
Let me pick that up for you. Our trash bucket is turned upside down. So
Y'all got to spend a little time on the bottom of the trash bucket as kind of a tripod stand. So come here, Mama. We'll show them what we're going to do now. And all we have to do now is we turn the auger back toward itself, back toward the front. If you look at this shaft, you see there's a spot right here in the end where the auger passes through. That's what actually turns the shaft, or turns the auger. That little gap in the shaft. And then you have the clamp to hold it tight to the shaft so that it doesn't, for lack of a better word, just kind of thread its way back up through there. And actually, since we've got this loose and since that shaft is loose with the bolt being out of it, let's just take it off. What do you say?
It'll just dangle.
Yeah. Lieutenant Dangle.
Yeah. So this is a metal cable holding this up, and then the rest of the feed lines have these thick string cords. I don't know if I'm crazy about that or not. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it.
I like it because you don't have to worry about them rusting.
Yeah.
But they will fray, and eventually will have to be replaced. They don't hold up as well as the steel for a lot of things, but it is what it is. This is the piece we have to replace. To take it off, we have 5/16, the wrench is a 5/16. The screw is probably a number 12, maybe. We have 6 bolts we have to take out and get it changed.
All right. This is what we took out.
See the problem? This is what we're going to put back in. See the not a problem?
Yeah.
The hole here, this was caused by the auger. What happened is I was leveling floors. I didn't do it right. It happens. The motor side hung a little low, which put the auger laid down at an angle, and it rubbed across this piece, rubbed a hole in it. The thing runs almost constantly, especially the last week of the flock. So, these are made out of pot metal is what we call it.
Yeah.
The auger is actually a pretty high grade, I would assume it's a pretty high grade spring steel, the way it flexes and all. So, the lesser of the two is what's gonna give.
This, I mean, it feels pretty thin anyways.
It is. It's probably maybe a 1/16 of an inch thick, maybe. So it's not gonna last long.
So we're gonna put our 6 screws back in this plate
Yep, we have 6 screws that go through the front. Go ahead and start yours. Remember? We have 6 screws that go in through the front that hold this plate on. 6 is probably a little bit overkill, but you know, that's what's here. And I'll say, if you ever get an opportunity to work with your wife, take it. It's pretty awesome. It's kind of fun.
Most of the time.
It's kind of fun having Danielle here because I get to teach her things. She was the teacher, but now she is the student. I call her Danielle-san. Not Daniel-san, but Danielle-san. There we go. Look at there. Look at it. Look at it. Look at it. Kevin! Kevin! Look at that. Look at that.
Kim, you punched her twice?
Kevin, you hit me twice. Sorry, I'm having a little fun. Okay, you can tighten yours up. Ain't nobody out here jumping me? No, Dad. No, Dad, it's just y'all. It's Kevin Hart. We're fans.
Yeah. It's funny.
It's a little vulgar sometimes, but
Yeah.
it's okay.
We ignore the language.
That's good enough. You get that already? Alright.
Yeah, like Tyler said, I'm learning to use new tools that I've never used before, and YouTube is a valuable resource, I just must say. So, if y'all are watching this to learn stuff, that's awesome. Or if you're just curious about chicken farming.
And if you just need somebody to make fun of, I'll volunteer.
Yeah.
Pretty thick skin. Okay, we got to run to town and get some parts that we weren't planning on getting, but we have to anyway.
Well, we have to fix the pump house real quick.
Yeah, we got a little
Floor saggage.
floor saggage that we need to work on in the well house, but
Yeah.
is that gonna go in there? Yes, it will. Okay.
It should. It came
It
out
better.
of it.
We have our parts. Here is the tube that goes over the motor shaft. This is what actually turns the auger. You kind of thread it up. Oh, well, you don't have to thread it up on the auger. We can put it on the motor first. Let's slide the motor back. Put our tube on, and all this is a piece of thin wall tubing that goes over the motor shaft, and it's got a piece welded on the end that the auger goes through. Got a slot on the end that the auger goes through. Let me get some of my tools out from under my arm here where I can actually do something. And we will probably gonna have to
You thread that
put
through
some of this
first?
together. Huh?
You don't thread that through first? You don't?
No, the nut goes on the bottom. We're gonna have to put some of it together so that when we turn the tube, the motor will turn, and it actually turns with the shaft and everything. Keeps the whole lined up. Keep the whole line up. And this may be a little bit of a pain, but I'm gonna kind of thread the auger back onto the tube. You kind of have to turn the tube and turn the auger, and everything works together in the wonderful hippie convent kind of world that we have going here, when all things work in tandem with each other. Here's where you run into a bit of a hassle, and it's not really going to be a hassle because I'm going to take the nut off. I've got it up to the nut, so now what I'm going to do is take this apart. It's not easy to thread everything together through the nut, so instead of trying to go through the nut, and I'll show you what I'm calling the nut. It's not a hex nut like you would think about.
It's a block.
It's a block, yeah. Actually, I'm going to leave the bolt in.
It's a block with a cutout in it, and the auger has to go through that little cutout in the block.
You can show off your new gloves.
Yeah, these are my new gloves too. But they're there's the cutout where the auger has to thread through, and then there's where the bolt goes through. So
Now then, that should have gained us a couple of inches worth of auger.
I don't know if we could hear you or not because of the fan. It's gone almost as far as you needed it to go.
It went almost as far as I needed it to go. And then it kind of did that thing like your parents do, where they go so far on the fashion train, and then one day they just say, I ain't going any further. I'm just going to wear this. Y'all can be seen with me or not. I never did that. Me or Danielle, the one, never did that. No. No, we don't still wear our flannels.
90s fashion is coming back.
That's right. That's because the 90s were one of the greatest decades for the people that enjoyed the 90s.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it up here now.
Still listen to 90s music.
All the time, baby. Now here's our nut. See, right here, this little slot. The reason I call it a nut, there's a threaded hole right there that the bolt goes into. And then you have this slot. This slot goes around the auger, and it's cut shallow enough that the bolt will tighten up before this part of the nut hits the shaft, so it actually does clamp on the auger. We'll put it on. Well, I got to get the bolt back out where I can.
Not too far.
There we go. We have to drop it at least twice. Get some feed in it.
That blew out of there.
All right, let me get it started. Come on. Come on.
There it goes.
There it is. There it is. There we go. Now, instead of running the whole thing up by hand, let's flip it over and ta-da!
A tool.
I hope you were talking about the ratchet that I pulled out of my pocket.
You'll never know.
Oh, I bet I will. I bet we've been together long enough that I can pretty well tell.
This process feels like it's taking a long time, and it is taking a little bit longer than normal, but
There we go.
we needed to get it apart, and then before we left, we definitely wanted to get the well house floor not fixed, but
Made to do with for right now.
yeah, sturdy enough to where we wouldn't have to worry about it, and then had to go get the parts.
Okay. Our clamp's on. Auger's clamped in place. Now we have to get this clamp back on.
You need the 7/16.
Half.
The half set, or the 7/16 is the other clamp, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the clamps on the other end. There we go.
Those can go right there.
Yeah, that looks like a good spot. Yeah.
That can go right there.
Looks like a good place for it.
You're not performing at optimal performance
Not
today.
performing at optimal performance at the moment. That's going to be our running joke. We made a video about washing fans. And I think Danielle said perform at optimal performance like, we thought it was like 18 times that day. I think it was actually just twice. There is some backstory to that, but we better just keep it to ourselves. And maybe one day. Maybe one day.
That's just become our catchphrase now.
Enough people decide they want to hear it, we'll tell it.
It's all done with love.
We went to town and got some parts and ate a pretty good lunch while we were over there, and it's made us both a little bit silly.
All we had to drink was Diet Coke.
All we had to drink was Diet Coke. We each of us ate a bacon cheeseburger, and I had some curly fries, and she had some plain old shoestring fries, and hers were better than mine because they were a little more salty.
It's just good.
Oh yeah, it hit the spot.
Yep. And then we came back and thought about putting our coveralls on again, but Tyler drug kissed their dog pee, so they're currently in the washer.
Yeah. But that's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good. It's good.
One of our dogs, she is injured somehow, and so she hasn't been going outside like normal.
Yep. It's good. It's good.
It's good.
That's another movie reference.
Yep.
Any of you
if
that
you're true
haven't-
fans.
Any of you that haven't seen National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation? Oh,
It's a classic.
that there, Clark, that's an RV. Okay. Now we're ready to go back to that end. No, we're not.
No, we're
We're
not.
ready
We got to go get the
an anchor
bearing.
bearing
Yeah.
and put it together, and then we'll go back to that end. We have to take the anchor bearing off now, and all it's held on with is a split dowel. I don't know if you can see it right there or not, but it's a small pin right about where my finger is. It's just a split dowel. I think it's probably a 3/16. It might be a quarter, something like that. But that's all that holds this anchor bearing on. This bearing on. It's not necessarily just an anchor bearing. The whole thing is called the anchor bearing. This is just the bearing part of it. So all we have to do here to get this bearing off is drive this pin out, which sometimes is easier said than done.
Yeah, when you said all we have to do.
All we have to do is let that thing roll around all over the back of the truck. There. About that.
Man.
That one broke.
I think we just need to go take a nap.
We've got some more somewhere. I just have to put my hand on them. Now understand, when you see me hit the end of that shaft, I'm not hitting the end of the shaft. I'm hitting the weld on the shaft. So I'm not actually flaring the end of the shaft out where the bearing won't come off. I'm just hitting the end of the shaft, the end of the weld on the shaft. So now
We'll go back.
we'll go find a pin. I know y'all don't really see the significance in having to go find a pin, but this will be about the 7th or 8th trip we've made back to the barn today just to get things that we weren't planning on needing.
Yeah.
This is why we're going back this time. This was my split dowel, and this is part of my split dowel that broke off. So the other side is broke too. I'm not putting that back in there just because it's going to come back out in 4 or 5 pieces if it makes it all the way back in. So, slide our bearing on, just like said. We got to start our roll pin back through our split dowel.
We were just talking about the different types of
Yep.
pins and stuff, so dowels.
Giving Danielle a little lesson in manufacturing and assembly. Easy. There it is. Alrighty. There's our new bearing in place. Roll pins in place. Split dowels in place. I'm sorry, not a roll pin, it's a split dowel. We talked about roll pins and their function, and now I have roll pins on the brain. Okay, now what we're going to do is we have to retension the auger, so we have to do the opposite of what we did earlier. Remember, this is our piece of old auger that we have threaded into the auger that's in the feed line. This is what we will pull the tension on the auger in the feed line with. We'll pull it out, put the vice grips on down there. Yeah, I'll get them in just a second.
I was gonna say, like, I don't see them.
We'll put them. We'll put the vice grips on down there, and that'll hold the auger in place till we can get the anchor bearing in. And we'll pull enough tension to take the vice grips off, and we'll let the anchor bearing come back up here where it's supposed to be.
We are highly trained professionals performing at optimal performance today.
Highly trained professional performing at optimal performance. We're not wasting time. We're not taking extra steps. We're doing everything exactly as we should, safely for the most part.
What's that word? Efficient.
We are extreme efficient. You ready? Let me show you a little trick with vice grips. I'll show you too. See, if you've got them too big, when you close them and you put them around something, you can turn the screw until it stops. And when you open them, give it about another quarter turn. Give it about another half turn. And you're ready.
Give it a 3/4 turn. Tell me when you want me to do it.
Whenever you ready.
Okay.
On there?
Yep.
Good deal. Alrighty.
The feed line kept sliding back over the auger.
We are ready to put the anchor bearing in. I wonder if it's actually an anchor bearing or if it's called an anchor shaft at this point, or an anchor assembly.
An anchor apparatus.
Again, don't just grab a hold of the shaft. It will take your hand back up in there with it if you give it a chance.
So just like he twisted it out, he's twisting it back in there.
There we go. It's a whole lot easier on the way in though, because everything is somewhat clean.
Yeah.
On the shaft, I could back it up a little. It's okay a little bit. Okay. It'll make it that much harder
Get feeding with.
to take it apart next time.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're ready to take the
Tension off.
vice grips off of the auger. Let me get a glove or two.
Ready?
Yep.
It's off.
I get it. There you go. So that's how much tension is on an auger. That is enough to lay you open, make you look like a fresh slab of bologna out of the deli at Walmart. Let me see it. I'll show you how to fix this. Hold the camera on me there, Mama. You've seen your vice grips do this. The piece comes out of the middle. You can't get it to go back in. What you have to do is stretch the spring. So if you hold this side, pull down, you see the pliers close, piece goes back in,
Yeah.
and your vice grips are fixed.
Easy peasy.
Easy peasy.
So now we're just we got the line back together, and we're gonna tighten up the clamp that we loosened earlier.
We're going to loosen it first.
We're gonna loosen it. But there are these clamps kind of periodically through the feed line. It holds the pieces together.
Yeah, this feed line is made up of 9-foot sections of pipe. This is feed pipe. This is a 9-foot. Let me get it right. 9-foot, 8-hole feed pipe. This is what we have in the brood area of the house because we have 4 feed pans and 4 turbo mates. Mm-hmm. In the off end of the house is what they call it. It's the very end, the first 25% and the last 25% is what we don't brood in. So we don't need these turbo grows. So that is a 9-foot 4-hole pipe.
And the brood, remember, is just a smaller area where we keep the chicks until they're large enough to
need
the rest of the house. And it saves us. Now, it's not that we don't heat the rest of the house, we do, but this can contain, the brood area can contain more heat. Conserving energy.
Conserving energy, one flock at a time. Actually, are working on some green energy stuff here at the farm. If it goes through.
If is a mighty big word.
If is a big word. If is a big word because it is a lot of money.
Yeah.
If it works out, our farm will be capable of handling about 70% of our highest monthly power bill on solar.
Yep.
I'm not actually this fat. I have on a sweatshirt and a coat. I just realized how fat I look on this camera. I'm pretty fat, don't get me wrong, but I'm not this fat. All right, we need to hook the shocker wire back up on that end, and we need to raise this feed line up out of the way. We've got a few other things we need to get taken care of today, but this is basically done as far as the feed line repair goes. And let's go hook a shocker wire back. We'll show you that. Maybe show you how to raise them up and let them down.
And whatever else.
And whatever breaks between here and there, hell, we'll just fix it.
Yeah. If y'all have any questions, or if you want to know, you know, if you see something and you want to know what it does or how we do it or whatever, let us know and we can make a video. Or
yeah, absolutely. Feel free to ask. We will tell you everything we know, and we will tell you everything we don't know.
Yep. And we'll tell you everything we are able to tell you. You can't make it stop.
Use your nose. That's pretty funny.
I think I took a picture. I think I should take another picture. Make it stop.
All right, let me show you how this goes back together. It's pretty simple. You got the shocker wire. You have a loop on the end of the shocker wire. You have a hook on the end of your spring. The hook goes in the loop, and this end of your spring goes around this insulator. We do have an insulator. Again, there's no power on this thing. They use these insulators just because that's what this was made to hook on.
Yeah.
There's no need to reinvent the wheel.
It's just the design.
It just works. So, the way I do it is just hook on the spring, a good pull.
Good pull.
Just like that.
Easy as pie.
Just like that. Now our shocker wire's back on.
Plug it back
Our
up.
feed line. Is plugged in and ready to run.
Now we'll raise it back up.
Good deal. We'll raise it back up. Got a few more things to do as far as floors and things like that before we can put the feed lines down to get ready to raise another flock.
Yep.